Okay, good evening, everybody. I am going to call to order this rather full Perrysburg Board of Education regular board meeting on this Monday, December 18th. Before we get started, I would say there are still, I understand, some chairs back there on the south side. If you all want to grab chairs and set them up as you see fit, feel free to.
That's cool.
So, Mr. Dreyer, roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Here.
Mrs. Eubank.
Here.
Dr. Rufford.
Here.
Mr. Pullman. Here. Mr. Bennington.
Here. Ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, I will start with our safety briefing. Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both the east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located just outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight and supporting Perrysburg Schools. So again, we have a full agenda, full of some recognitions, as well as some important work for the district. Can I have a motion to accept that agenda?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Pullman, Ms. Larimer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Dr. Rufford.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Okay, first item on the agenda are Board of Education recognitions. Mr. Hustler.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate everybody being here this evening, and there's a great deal to celebrate, so thank you for taking the time to do it. And I'll begin by introducing Mr. Aaron Cookson, principal of Perrysburg High School.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board, Mr. Dreyer, Mr. Hostler. We have a lot to celebrate this evening, so I will make this really, really brief. But I do want to say how proud I am of all of our student athletes in attendance this evening, because you all contribute so much to our school climate and culture and the pride at PHS, but also in the district and throughout our community. So thank you for all that you do for our district. I got to thank the coaches as well, assistant coaches, our athletic training staff that keep our athletes, healthy, up and running, in top form. Our athletic department at PHS as well, and those who work in the athletic department. Parents, thank you for all your support as well. And finally, just our student athletes, congratulations on this special evening. So I'd like to start with introducing our state champion girls cross country team head coach, Mr. John Monheim.
If I slide this a little to the left, will that be okay? Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Board of Education and Superintendent Hostler for this recognition, and thank you to Mr. Cookson and the athletic department for giving us an opportunity to succeed on the playing fields. So you may have heard 6 weeks ago, the girls cross country team won their second state title in the last 3 years, and we did it because of a lot of reasons. I remember the night before the meet, we had a little talk, and we talked about it was kind of a puzzle that we were putting together, and there's so many different pieces of the puzzle, and that the pieces include obviously the athletes, their families, their parents that are so supportive. The junior high program that's unbelievable and incredible that's being recognized tonight, the junior high coaches. There's just a whole lot of pieces that have to be in place to make that puzzle work just right, and it happened to work right for us. Three big pieces of the puzzle that I want to recognize are the assistant coaches, Coach Osborne, Coach Slivga, and Coach Dolliver. If you could come on up. You look thrilled to be standing up here, Coach Osborne. Great job. I'm going to hand you the mic. I'm going to introduce the team now. Before I introduce the team, though, I want to, little quick, the way the sport of cross country works. There's 3 divisions in cross country. We're obviously in the big division. There's about 155 schools in Division I cross country, and the 20 best converge on a course south of Columbus the first weekend in November. And going into the meet, we were ranked 3rd, and then we'd been ranked 3rd pretty much all season. But the girls had something else on their mind, and the day before and the morning of, we talked about 2 things with the girls. We didn't put a whole lot of pressure on them to go out and win, because that's pressure that a high school kid doesn't need. But we knew in the back of the minds they were thinking that. We basically said 2 things to the team. Try to be unselfish. That was probably the biggest key. And what we meant by that is when the race starts, it's 3.1 miles. It's 18 to 20 minutes long. You're going to hurt at times. You're going to be uncomfortable at times. It's going to be painful at times, but try to be unselfish and run for the other 6 girls that are hopefully doing the same for you. So I thought they weren't selfish at all. And the other thing we asked them to do was, at the state cross country meet, because of the excitement and the adrenaline, a lot of teams get out really, really quick, and then they kind of fade in the middle of the race. We asked them to get out well and then kind of destroy the middle of the race. At the state cross country meet, the 1st and the 3rd miles are very similar. They're amongst all the fans and the supporters, and it's loud and it's crazy. The middle mile, we kind of joke, we call it the dead mile, because there's not many people out there. So we asked them the day before. It's kind of corny, but after I said it, I thought, man, this is pretty good. I said, try to come alive during the dead mile. And if you were there, you saw it. With technology today, they can score the meet as the meet rolls on. At the quarter mile, we were in 6th place. At the 1 mile, we were in 3rd place, and we were about 62 points at that point. In the 2nd mile, collectively, the 7 girls passed 170 girls somewhere in that area. So we went from being down 60 points at the mile to being in 1st place by about 22 points at the 2nd mile. They totally turned the race around, and then they hung on in the last mile and state champion. So it was pretty impressive. So let me bring them up. I'll start with, we'll go from young to old. Our sophomores, Braylee and Kaylin Becken. Come on up. Our juniors, Laura Vallette, Natalie Sanders, and Ava Beeks. And our seniors, Taylor Moody, Aubrey Evans. Aubrey's also going to be running at Cleveland State. And adult Hannah Kirsten. Hannah will be running at Cornell. Last thing I'm going to say is, we ran this race 6 weeks ago. I've thought about it every single day since, actually more than once or twice a day. I can't imagine what's going through their minds. If I took a poll here right now and said how many people in the audience have won a state title in their high school career, I'm guessing there wouldn't be a whole lot of people. These girls have done it. Some of them have done it twice, which is pretty sweet. I went forward. These 3 young ladies were All-Ohio, first team All-Ohio, because they finished in the top 30 in the state. And we'll start with Natalie Sanders. Step out, Natalie. Natalie was 27. This is her 3rd year in a row of being All-State. Quite an accomplishment.
Wow.
Ava Beeks, she finished 10th overall, ran just an unbelievable race that day. She's been All-State 2 of her 3 years. And last but not least, Hannah Kirsten was 8th overall. And that was Hannah's only her 2nd state cross-country race, and to finish in the top 10 is, you are among the elite there. So once again, thanks to everybody who helped us form this puzzle, and we'll try to be back here again next year. Thank you. Girls, they want you this way. Congratulations. Congratulations. Yep. Of course.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep. Nice work, girls. Nice work. Nice work. Nice work. Yep. Nice work. Nice work. Nice work. Yep. Of course. Yep. Congrats again. Yep. Nice work. Congrats. Yep. Yep. Congrats again. Cornell.
Yep. Oh my gosh, what's happening?
You want us to make 2 rows?
Yeah, you should. Yeah. Come on.
Thank you very much.
Up. You want me to take it? I'll take it. Oh, it's not the same as selfie.
Well, on behalf of the board, what an incredible accomplishment. Thank you very much. Let's give them one more round of applause.
This time, I'd like to introduce the head coach for our boys cross country team, Keith Medeiros. Our boys were OHSA state qualifiers, a top 10 finish in the state of Ohio. I think is the highest ever by our boys cross country team. So how about a big round of applause for Coach Medeiros?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'd like to keep this short. Coach Monheim took some of my talking time, so I'll keep it real short. But thank you to the administration, the Board of Education, the athletic department. I'd like to also thank the girls team because we had a lot of fun when we were down there in Columbus. Obviously, it's fun when somebody wins a state title, but those 9 ladies and the coaches made our trip fun. So thank you. I'd like to introduce real quickly Coach Lumbreezer and Coach Beck. 2 assistant coaches, both new this year, did a great job. I think the guys really enjoyed having them on board, looking for more years with them in tow. How about if we just bring all the guys up real quick, the athletes. We'll introduce them real fast here. While they're on their way up real quickly, we were 10th this year. I think that's the highest place in Perrysburg team history for the cross-country team. We were one of only 3 schools in Division I that had both boys and girls programs finish in the top 10, so that's pretty neat. We have 184 boys teams in Division I, so we finished ahead of all but 9 actually, so that was pretty exciting. Members in this year's team, we have freshman Noah Madden, sophomores, Brody Bauman and Kenneth Morgan. Juniors, Nicholas Walton, Anthony Clark. And seniors, Alex Sherman, Ethan Lang, and AJ Bowman. Anthony, if you'd step out for a second. Anthony was 23rd at this year's race. That makes him all Ohio. So congrats to Anthony. And we have 5 gentlemen up here who were academic All-Ohio, which I think is an outstanding accomplishment. AJ Bowman, Ethan Lang, Alex Sherman, Anthony Clark, and Brody Bauman, each of those guys. So it was a fun season, and like Coach Monheim said, I hope we can come back again next year. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Getting a workout tonight.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our head football coach, Dirk Connor. Our football team once again qualified for the state playoffs this year. So Mr. Connor, Coach Connor is going to chat a little bit about his season and some of his student athletes. So Coach Connor.
So you may notice our boys aren't on the agenda. Our All-State is released after the agenda was printed, but we didn't want to wait till January to get them on here. So we were fortunate enough this year with the work these guys did on the field to have 2 players selected to the Ohio All-State team, one of which was also academic All-State. And, it's quite an honor. Ohio is widely regarded as one of the top 5 states in the country for high school football. And for these guys to be recognized in the biggest division and one of the best states in the country is truly an honor. And at this time, I'd like 3rd team All-State and also academic All-State, Andrew Bowden, to come forward, please. And then 1st team All-State as a junior, Joseph Sini. Both these guys, in addition to what they do on the field, obviously Andrew with being academic All-State in the classroom. In football, only seniors are selected to academic All-State, but that's something we're looking forward to Joe getting done next year as well. And both these guys are also team captains elected by their teammates and represent us not only on the football field, but incredibly well in the classroom and off the football field. It's Andrew Bowden and Joseph Sini.
Really is getting a workout.
Congratulations again, guys.
This time, I'd like to introduce the co-head coaches of our girls' state qualifying tournament team, Mr. Ryan DeLauder and Mr. Dan Thompson.
I'd like to thank Mr. Hosler and the school board, Mr. Cookson, and the entire administrative staff at the high school, and Mr. Jaco and the athletic department. It's an honor to teach and coach in a district that's so supportive of our coaches and the student athletes themselves. So girls golf this year with a experienced team. 5 seniors came back. Highlights, we won the NLL for the 4th time in a row, so they had the 4-peat, which is something to be very proud of. Multiple tournaments at the beginning of the year, but they always, their first 3 years kind of couldn't get over the hump to finally qualify for state, and we did this year. So very proud of them for being able to do that. So they got 2nd in the district and qualified for the state tournament. In the state tournament, we went down and competed and had some fun and ended up finishing 12th. But the highlight that when we were down there, senior Sydney Deals shot 1 over 71 the first day and a 2 over 72 the second day to shoot a 3 over 143. And that allowed her to finish as state runner-up for the tournament this year, which is so with that, I'm going to introduce the girls. Also, as the other couple coaches mentioned, all 5 of our seniors that we call up, all 5 were academic All-Ohio as well, which, as teachers, I stress to them, student athlete, the student comes first. And so we're so proud of that more than anything else, even qualifying for the state. So with that, I'm going to call the girls up. First up, again, state runner-up and all-state, All-Ohio, Sydney Deal, senior. Senior Olivia Eisenman. Senior Araya Ellis. Senior Paige Feldkamp. Senior Mia Moffitt. Junior Ella Kelvin. And freshman Kennedy Thacker. Thank you.
Yeah, they had one freshman.
Another round of applause for these great accomplishments.
Good job, guys. All right, now I'd like to introduce our boys soccer coach, Coach Dennis Jazan. Coach Jazan.
Good evening. It's a little bit of a different feel than being on a microphone. So unfortunately, I only have one person to introduce, and I'll apologize in advance. I'm going to sound like a boxing ring announcer as I list off this player's accolades, but one of the amazing senior athlete I get to introduce here. For starters, just like several have said, all academic, all Ohio as well, so we always look for student athletes before we are the athletes, we're the students first, and we always push that with our soccer program. But this player, really, like I said, tons of accolades. He was a 4-year varsity earner for me, 4-year varsity starter essentially for me as well. So when I came in to coach the high school program, this player came in with me. Ended his career as the all-time leading goal scorer for Perrysburg High School. So that among itself is just probably the best accolade that kid could ever have. We put out goal sheets to start every single year. This player's number one goal sheet, or number one item, as a freshman, was to be the all-time leading goal scorer, and he did it in his very last game. This player was 3-time first-team All-League, 3-time first-team All-District, last year's second-team All-State, and this year's NLL Player of the Year and District Player of the Year. Again, all-time leading goal scorer. Ended our season 16-2-2 this year, the best record we've had since probably 2010. NLL champions first year since 2010, and this player was the reason why. We rode his back and his coattails practically the entire way. Excuse me. So without really any further ado, here he is in his newly blonde hair, Alex Diaz.
It did sound a little bit like a boxing announcer without the Michael Buffer voice. Very good. Alex, congratulations. Let's give this young man a round of applause.
Okay, I am going to fill in for our girls soccer coach who couldn't make it here this evening. He's actually out of the country, Jorge Diaz. So I would like to call up here to the lectern Camille Francis and Emma Ogdal. As a team, the girls' soccer team finished with a 21-1 record this season and made it all the way to the regional final. And if you were at any of their games, especially late in the season, they were just they played phenomenally, and it was so exciting to see how far they went. And I know they're hungry for next year already, for sure. They scored 95 goals on the season, which was good for second all-time in school history. So again, a very successful season from the girls soccer team. To my immediate left here, Camille Francis. She is a sophomore, and Camille scored 20 goals this season and added 10 assists as well. She also earned first team All-NLL, first team All-District, and first team All-State. So how about we give her a big round of applause for that. As well, Camille, again, as a sophomore, was also named an All-American this season. So congratulations, Camille. She was only one of 3 sophomores, based off the information I have, to earn this honor in the entire country. So one of 3, right here, the entire country to earn All-American status this season. So congratulations, Camille. To her left, Emma Ogdal, another sophomore. Emma scored 25 goals this season, which was tied for second all-time in a season at PHS, and added 11 assists as well. She was also named first team All-NLL, first team All-District, and first team All-State. So how about a big round of applause for Emma? So congratulations, girls, on a wonderful team season, but also individual seasons as well.
We look forward to seeing Camille and Emma back here this time next year, but until then, how about another round of applause? Congratulations.
Also, the success of the soccer team didn't stop with just the soccer team and Emma and Camille. Also, our very own Jorge Diaz was named and earned the Girls Soccer Division I Coach of the Year for 2023. So congratulations to Coach Diaz on that distinct honor. Prior to introducing our last coach for the evening at the high school, at least, I just want to say one more time how proud I am of all of the student athletes here in attendance as the building principal. And I enjoy each and every one of you at all your events, whether it's on the field or out running miles and miles and miles across country, on the pitch, whatever the case might be. I just enjoy watching you all compete and bring so much pride to our school. I would be remiss if I didn't say, based on the information that I have, this potentially could have been the most successful athletic season as a fall season in the history of PHS as well, based off of all the accolades we've heard this evening. So how about one more big round of applause for all of our student athletes and coaches. Okay, last coach I have to introduce for the evening is our tennis coach, Coach Burgode, to talk about an OHSAA honor as well. The girls team was a state qualifier as well this year, so I want to introduce at this time Coach Burgode.
Thank you again to the board, Mr. Hostler, Mr. Cooks, and Mr. Jaco, who I know couldn't be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. Even with all the historic accomplishment, it was actually pretty close to being even more historic. The girls tennis team was just a couple games away from making their way to state qualifying in the state Final Four as well. And obviously Penelope's a big part of that. So at this time, I do want to introduce Penelope Giamarco. So Penelope is a sophomore. She's played first singles for us the last 2 years. She came in and has been top dog on our team. Her success is no surprise because she attacks her training head on. I'm not sure that there's a day that Penelope doesn't pick up a tennis racket and go hit some balls in the court. And she also made it a point this past spring to go to all of our weightlifting that was optional, but she made it a point to do that, and that translates to a lot of success on the court. Penelope went 14-2 this season, and that's playing first singles, the best players from every other team. Her honors this year include being league champion, NLL champion, first team all NLL, sectional tournament winner, district runner-up, and then first team all district on her way to qualify for the state tournament individually. So there's only 16 players that make it to that tournament as individually, and only 2 from Northwest Ohio. So that puts her in a rare category there. And I know that, she would have loved for that first match to finish a little bit different down at state, but we know that, like a lot of these other athletes, Penelope's going to be back here. She's only 3 semesters into her high school career, but she's already the most experienced player on the team going into 2024, which makes her a great option to be team captain next year. So we're really excited about that, and we're just really excited to see what new heights Penelope can reach in the second half of her career. So congratulations.
Again, congratulations, Penelope. Let's give her a hand as well as all of our high school student athletes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea Monheim. I am a first-year AD at the junior high and previous coach, so I know many of these athletes in all the different sports, so it's just great to see them continuing to succeed. I do want to say something about the program before I bring up the coaches. If you look at the cross-country girls and boys teams at the high school, it's because, and I know this sounds a little biased, but we do have the best feeder program in the entire state of Ohio because of our junior high program. They are out there the same amount of time that the high school team. They're there for the winter runners right now. They do the summer running program as well. So because of the high school accolades, it's because of these awesome junior high coaches that we have and the program that they have built. It's quite a legacy. So I will bring up the boys team first for our, the boys team. So his head coach, we have right here, Matt Ferguson, and his assistant coach, Melissa Gressman, who will introduce the boys.
So first of all, thank you for recognizing our junior high boys cross country team tonight. We had a great squad this year with 67 guys on the team, and ultimately with that number of guys, very thankful to have an assistant coach alongside for all of that. But with that many guys, the competition was fierce for our 7 top spots, and tonight we are proud to be represented by our top 7 from the OHSAA state race. Our 7th and 6th runners tonight, Ben Kunos and Isaac Pauly, are on the 8th grade boys basketball team, so they are not here tonight for a game. But our next representatives are, and these next guys all scored within the top 30 at the state race, earning OHSAA medal honors, and that is Caden Morgan, who finished 25th overall. Braden Bostetter, who finished 18th overall. Cameron Evans, who finished 14th overall. And then our next 2 representatives scored within the top 8, which earned them podium spots at the state race, and that was Cooper Benj, who was 6th overall. And then Lane Gazarek, who was 2nd overall and was also this year's individual NLL champion. So just a pleasure to work with these guys this year who both, this whole squad won the NLL championship and then the OHSAA state race. And as Mrs. Monheim said, it's not just because they're fast, but it's because they're out there working in both the winter and the summer. So a lot of work going in to achieve these accomplishments already at the junior high level. So thank you again tonight for recognizing them.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
One more boasting comment before we bring up the girls team and their awesome coaches is I think the one reason that both programs are successful is because of the connections that all of the coaches make. If you would go by Mr. Ferguson's room in the morning and Mr. Murray's room in the morning, it is just surrounded with cross-country runners because of the connections that they make. So that's why these connections continue, and then they go to the high school and they have wonderful coaches that continue that connection. So connection is very important. So without further ado, we'll bring up Head Coach Sean Murray and Assistant Coach Michelle Dalton.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank Superintendent Hostler and the school board for giving us a chance to kind of recognize these athletes. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge, Mrs. Monheim and also Coach Dalton here. And kind of real quick before I get into the girls that are here tonight, I want to kind of acknowledge the fact that we have 56 girls on the team, it's a very large team, and I can safely say we wouldn't have near the success that we have if we didn't have such a big team. So even though they're not all here tonight, I think they kind of deserve to be recognized and just acknowledged, because truly, without all of the girls on the team, none of this would happen. So we had a very successful season. Just a couple of things of note. One, so the girls this season, they won every varsity race they entered this season, which is a pretty big accomplishment. This year also makes the 6th year in a row that they've won the NLL championship, as well as the 6th year in a row that they've won the OHSAA state meet that they're being acknowledged for tonight. So again, pretty cool. So I'm going to call up the individual runners here. This was our varsity lineup for the state meet. First we have Eva Yarkusko, Emily Garcia, Emma Rogie, Marissa Cope, and then these last 3 girls, they placed high enough in the top 10, so they were actually on the podium this year. So we have Kylie Diller, placed 7th, Lexi Schultz, who's 5th, and Charlotte Baxter, who is 3rd. And again, I just want to kind of recognize and acknowledge and say, girls, you did a great job this year.
That's great to see. Congratulations. Again, let's give them one last round of applause. So I'm familiar enough with this that I have a strong hunch we're going to see several of these faces back here as part of the spring sports. And if that isn't the case and you're a senior, best of luck in your future endeavors if you're continuing to pursue your sport or otherwise. It is great to see all of the scholastic athletes that are here and hear about those accomplishments as well. And it's clear, I'm not too far away from having kids in school and running them to practice and attending games to remember how important it is for that parental, grandparent, and guardian support too. So thank you very much for all the support you're giving these athletes, making them as successful as they are. So it looks like the 2025 fall sports program will be in great shape for those of you that are returning. And again, we look forward to seeing you again next year. So congratulations to all one more time. Rest of the agenda, Mr. Drewer is going to give us an outstanding presentation on the financial numbers. The board's going to talk about an upcoming ballot issue. I can't think of anything better to be doing in the midst of this holiday season. But if you don't agree with me, if you have other things to do, feel free. Now is a good time to have a nice evening and enjoy the holidays. We will take a 5-minute break while the room gets organized.
I'm shocked.
An hour to the meeting to hear all of this.
Well,
I'm shocked.
what's that? Yeah. Okay, we're back. That was nice. That was nice. So next on the agenda is the superintendent reports, and we continue with some pretty important recognitions.
Are we doing number 5?
Public participation. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Next on the agenda is public participation. We have one speaker signed up. This first public participation will be for agenda items only. The board will, once recognized, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name, association with the district, and address. You will have 3 minutes. We'll try and give you a notice when it gets close to the end. Our first speaker, our only speaker for the evening, Mr. Chris Gorange. Mr. Gorange, you have the podium.
I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed that this is all that's left. That's quite the list of students. Chris Gorange, I'm on Karen Aid. I'm a parent of a couple students in the district. Speaking to the failed levy and the student growth, overall, our teachers and staff do a fantastic job with our kids. The students in this district routinely perform well in everything they do, from academics to athletics, from performing arts to community involvement. When a levy fails to pass in a community with a district as successful and supported as ours, we have serious questions to answer. While the sky isn't falling, the issues we had prior to the vote persist. It's probably safe to say that families are going to continue moving to Perrysburg. My family, like many others, chose Perrysburg because the education is top-notch and the district had a community with solid support. The levy failing doesn't change that. It also, presumably, doesn't change the population issue that we are anticipating. Something still needs to be done. Probably the biggest issue I have heard about the levy is that it was just too much at once. While reasonable, I don't know the best way to determine the most important issue to address. School districts seem to always be starved for funding these days. Unfortunately, that makes these levies even more important. In my opinion, for the best use of our time and money, we must consider when families will be moving to our district. Often it is the younger families with children just beginning in their education. This points me to the elementaries. We have aging elementary schools with large deferred maintenance burdens. We already have portables for extra space, at some, if not all. Unfortunately, we must consider the safety of these portables. Woodland has at least one documented incident where someone attempted to enter the portable who wasn't a teacher, staff, or student. Every portable added is additional entrances that need to be secured, and with students moving between buildings, it creates an even more significant safety liability. None of this even gets to the issue of student-to-teacher ratios for our younger students if we do nothing. For a community that values safety and education, portables are unacceptable alternatives to permanent classroom space. If you consider another levy proposal in the near term, please do so for the elementary schools and for our younger students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorange. We have a presentation from the superintendent during the superintendent's report on it, a board discussion later on, and then there is a resolution to proceed to vote on outside of the consent agenda. So there are no more speakers signed up for the evening. So now we will go to the superintendent's report. Mr. Hostler.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and it's wonderful to be here in December to see the students and the families that were here, the recognitions, and it's just a great environment, and certainly the concerts and everything that come with this time of year is very special. At the end of the school year ends, of course, in May, and we know that the calendar year, we're ready to set a whole slew of New Year's resolutions that we'll probably all break. But it also marks an ending for board member service. So we wanted to take a little bit, a moment or two to say thank you to two of our board members for serving on the school board. I know that the last 4 years of your terms have probably felt more like 12, given everything that this board and the community and the district has had to go through. Certainly we've been grateful for all that you've done on behalf of the students and our staff here. And just a few things. I know, Kelly, as an alum, I know that's something that you're very proud of, and certainly I know the schools are very proud to have you as an alumni and call you one of their own. And that's always been something that's been near and dear, to your heart, as well as being a parent and representing your hometown. And I know service is always a challenge, and you can never hide as a board member, and you've always been very gracious with being open to anyone who would want to talk to you. And so we're grateful for what you did here, and we want to thank you for your service and all that you've meant to this board. Mr. Pullman, I know that this is not the first time that you've retired on me, but I have a feeling you probably won't be coming back in an official capacity. So after this one, so we might have broke you, but we're very grateful for all that you've done, throughout your entire career. And I know we've had opportunities to say thank you for the different steps, but from a personal perspective, I knew you as an athletic director when I was new to the district and got to see you in a variety of situations as a staff member. And some of those situations were really, really hard and tough. And the consistency of you as a person in those moments when no one was around and it was just two of us, to you and your service as a school board member, it was unflinching and unwavering, the character and the type of person that you brought and the fondness that you have for our students in every decision. So thank you for your service as well. So
Take a moment if any other board members would like to say a few words.
Just being on the board for the last 2 years. It's challenging, but we do it because we care about the kids. So I appreciate working with you two and getting to know you better. And I wish you well. And I'm sure you're going to find ways to fill your free time and keep giving back to the community. So we appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you in the future and seeing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure it won't be here, but good for you.
I hope we see you at board meetings in the future, in different seats, of course, maybe more comfortable seats, I'm sure. But it's been an honor and a pleasure to get to know you both. And I hope that your love for our community continues to shine as you find your next steps.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add, I think back about my first interaction with each of you individually, and Kelly, it was when I first got onto the board, and there was something going on that you didn't like, and you called me up, and you said, can we meet? And we met, and candidly, I don't think you liked my answers, so what did you do? You ran for the school board that next term, and I always respected that. Something was going on, you didn't like it, you threw your hat in the ring, put yourself out there to address it. And you said it again during the campaign. I remember during the foundation, I'm going to paraphrase, and I apologize if I get it wrong, but I hope the sentiment's right. It's, despite the challenges of being a school board member, it was important enough that you wanted to continue to do that. And it's just all kinds of respect to have that courage to put yourself out there to serve your community. So thank you very much. Ray, I also kind of remember the first time I met you. I'm not going to say where because it'll be a little, well, was it Planet Fitness, which you probably still go to. I don't anymore, and the results show. But, I was standing next to you. We didn't say too much, but I remember going home to my wife. You were this enigma in the community. And I said, I saw Ray Pullman. I stood next to Ray Pullman at this meeting, or at this place. And the more we got to once we started to serve together and get to know each other, your kindness, your wisdom, you were a mentor. Watching you during your term as president during a very difficult time was more than admirable. The service that you've given to this district for 24, almost 25 years is just impressive, just amazing, and it shows who you are. So I've learned a lot from both of you, and you both have my utmost respect. And again, I'm gonna miss you. Board service is like you feel, it goes by quick, but you feel every moment of it. So it does feel like it went by quick with you guys. And best of luck. Look forward to seeing you around the community in the future.
Thank you.
We do have we do have a small token of appreciation. The planners, of course. Folks took a collection and wanted to give you a gift there, so we're grateful for your service. And also just a certificate and a pin here that we'd like to share with you. So.
I think it's your turn to be recognized in the recognition corner. Your time in the corner.
Thank you. Yeah.
Some muted applause from those of us that are left here. Okay, next we have a presentation from Mr. Hostler on the student population growth and facility needs, continuing our discussion from the special meeting that we held last week. Mr. Hostler was asked to continue to gather some information to present to the board for a discussion later on in this meeting.
Yep, thank you. And so this isn't going to be a typical presentation, so I'm sure everybody will be very excited to hear that. So what I'd like to do is just walk through some of the slides that are available. So as the board begins to have their discussion before the resolution, if there is information that you would like me to pull up or to refer back to, this is information that would be readily available as the discussion goes through. And if not, that's fine too. So I wanted just to share some of the things that were gathered. And this is a reflection of the conversation that happened a week ago. And it is also based on feedback that has taken place since that meeting. So questions and things that have come up, and we've tried to capture those things. So we talked about the voters having spoken. We talked at the last time meeting about some of the feedback, and we've kind of quantified that here. And we know at the last conversation we've heard about different ideas, so we pulled some information and data together based on, 2 elementary schools, or, taking a longer time window to come up with a plan and doing more and not less. Or we've heard, let's do less. So we did gather some information and numbers relative to that. We know that the needs have not changed, and there's some, slides here about capacity and current enrollment. The challenges that are facing each of the levels that our staff and students are facing, and then some of the additional things that were identified with the facilities group that studied this for 14 months, and they identified the school needs, and those are listed there. So moving into the ballot issue, what was discussed last time was considering this ballot issue and what would it mean and how it would operate. So we've put down some information here based on the last conversation of what it would look like to place an elementary portion on the ballot issue from the November election. So the next few slides that we have here kind of break that down in terms of the costs. There's also a breakdown of what it would cost a homeowner, and so we can provide more information there. Some desire to look at the differences between this potentially proposed ballot issue in March versus the bond issue in November. And you can see the difference, the number of mills and the total amounts. And it represents a 41% decrease from what was being asked of voters in November. We do have some debt mills that are set to retire on December 31st, 2024. So we're excited to have that opportunity. We have talked in the past about how bond issues have worked in Perrysburg, and the fact that HPI, the bond issue there, has been reduced 51% in 9 years. And we are continuing to talk about the needs of the buildings. Still part of the ELP program for OFCC funding, so that's something that we know is important to the conversation. So that's still under the umbrella that we're still able to receive funds and reimbursement. And then the actual structure of the bond issue, the ballot issue, and the Ohio Revised Code sections that this pertains to, which allows us to be on the ballot. The structure of it, and these previous slides deal with Ohio Revised Code 133.06E, which allows the board to place a bond issue for a certain dollar amount. And then as it explains under I in that same section, we're able to utilize a permanent improvement levy as a way to fill the balance between what OFCC will provide and allow us to borrow and what we need to do to make this work for our students and our community. So how this will break down is it's 2.65 bond issue, 0.85 permanent improvement levy for a total of 3.5 combined mills. So that's the total amount there, and then you've seen that number before. We had some questions, and there's a couple slides here if anyone wants to go, to touch on this, but there was a lot of questions about, taxes and home values. But just a reminder, if you have a home that's valued at $250,000, that does not mean that is the amount of valuation of that home that is subject to taxes. So in Ohio, it actually is 35% of that market value, which is $87,500 in this example. And if there are individuals who qualify for homestead exemption discounts, which even lowers that. So how do we get to know it's $25.52 a month? This is the formula that you plug in, so you can find your own value, use the previous calculation, 0.35 of your home value, and then 0.0035 by that amount. It gives you the annual amount, and then divide that by 12, and that gives you your monthly amount. So plans for growth. What the facilities group has done has been remarkable. They've presented here multiple times, and we understand that not acting, which is always a right of the board, we know that this conversation will be put not on hold indefinitely, but certainly it'll need to come back in the future, and because the needs have not changed. And just a reminder about the facilities committee and the work that they did and the guiding principles. So this is all information that's prepared to support the board's conversation later on in the meeting. And I just wanted you to be aware of what was there. I'm happy to answer any questions here, do any deep dives ahead of that. If not, know that this and other information is available. And this is posted so residents and viewers can plug into it as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. That could have been a land speed record for you to go through this deck. But again, the intention is for this to serve as a resource, because this is, a deliberation by this board, by the board members, to move forward. So this will serve as a resource. Are there any, I guess, knowing that we'll do the discussion here and a couple agenda items down, any clarifying questions on the materials that Mr. Hostler presented?
Thanks for the information about how the taxes are calculated, because I think a lot of people don't understand that. And in our last meeting, right afterwards, I went and looked at the auditor's website, because our taxes were not up yet, at least for my house, and I just looked, and it's up there. So it tells you what, it even tells you what the tentative values are, and the 35%, like how much we would be taxed on, which helps, because I know that was a lot up in the air for people as well. So if you take that, times the 0.35, so it'll give you a better idea of what it would be. And I know that was part of the problem. It was such a big ask, and people weren't sure what their reevaluation of taxes would be. So that information is out there as well. So I think having that solid, how those are calculated, was super helpful. So thank you, Mr. Hostler.
One thing that I question about all of this, and there's really, I suppose it's more or less a rhetorical question. But I think in your last presentation or the one before it, you mentioned that one of the things that people objected to was the amount of times that we come back and ask. And to me, that was one of the beauties of the bond that we had in the fall, because it wouldn't be that constant repetitive ask in trying to accommodate all this massive growth in the district. So this is a step that I agree with you. It should start with the elementary if we're going to take that elephant and start biting it one piece at a time. The elementary is the place to go, but then how do we help the people understand who are angry about us always coming back to them, that now we will be coming back to them? Or is this just a matter of fact thing? I mean, all right, we didn't pull it out in the fall, so now we're going to do this in smaller chunks, but it's going to be coming at you all the time.
Yeah, we'll get into that here later on down in the agenda. So as we let these materials kind of marinate for a little bit, Mr. Drewer, we'll move into the treasurer's report, sir. And I was sincere. I believe your reports are exciting.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, after tonight, the honoring of all of our student athletes, you kind of feel like, man, is this the low point of the meeting or whatever?
I
But
would
let me
not
say
look at it that way.
a couple of things. It's been an interesting night, and I haven't got to my presentation yet. Sitting in the front row is a gentleman, David Drewer, who Tom worked with, is my second cousin who I've never met. Our grandfathers were brothers, and David came here to support his granddaughter, and saw the last name. We knew that if you see Drewer spelled that way, you know we're related, because it's only when it got Americanized. So that was a first. And Kelly and Ray, it's been good working with you. Kelly has done her best to keep me on my toes, and I appreciate that. And I do want to tell a quick Ray story. Down at the state playoff game with Olentangy Berlin, Ray got to meet my favorite son, whose first football season as a head football coach seemed very similar to Ray's first season as head football coach. And Ray had some good advice. So once a coach, always a coach, right, Ray? And Austin's ready to get back he's in the weight room now, so they're good. All right, so I want to talk about a couple things up front, talk a real high level, something in some ways that has no meaning, but has a lot of meaning depending who's looking at it. So one of the things at the state level, obviously they look at from the fair funding formula, our local capacity, right? Our ability to, our portion of the base cost. And that's based on assessed values and state average income and our federal gross income. Those things go into capacity. But there's also another calculation the state looks at, goes, hey, is the local people taking care of their fair share, okay? And I'm not saying necessarily I agree with these numbers. I'm just saying these are the numbers that is out there. And you can find them in the CUP report every year. These are the school districts in Lucas and Wood County. You can tell us which one is ours. This is our local tax effort as recorded by the state. And it's not so much local tax effort I want to show you, but I want to show you that comparing school districts on funding is very, very difficult, because you're going to look at this and, what is the difference? You'll see Ottawa Hills and Anthony Wayne way down here at the low end, and I believe with North Baltimore and Elmwood at the top. And man, North Baltimore and Elmwood, they're at 1.4. Their local taxpayer is doing much more than their capacity, right? But if you look at that, you go, man, that's kind of, is that right? So I want to kind of dive into this a little bit, just to give you some perspective. So if you look at, these are the same districts. This is all of our local tax revenue from real estate. The blue is residential, the orange is Class 2 industrial commercial, and the green is public utility personal property. And right away, you see the long blue bar, that's Ottawa Hills. Ottawa Hills is very low on the local share. And we're one of the lower bars on residential. And if you look at some of the taller bars of the green and orange, you're going, like North Baltimore is really high, they're high local capacity. So you're going, what is going on here? So let's isolate this a little bit. So here's just residential. We are about the fourth, if you will, highest percentage of local residential contribute to our real estate revenues. Ottawa Hills, Otsiko's a little bit higher than we are. Anthony Wayne's a little bit higher. So obviously, almost 80% of our local real estate revenue comes from residential. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end in a different vein on that. Okay, so right away you start seeing the districts who have lower local, if you will, local tax effort, typically higher residential. And why is that? What goes along with bedroom communities typically? Higher incomes, right? So, but let's look at the flip that coin over, and you look at, let's say, Elmwood or North Baltimore, and you see they're up there very high. North Baltimore has a significant industrial base there. That's the orange bar. They also got that green in public utilities. Elmwood has pipeline money. So what has happened is those two sources contribute so much more tax base, it makes it look like their local share is higher because it doesn't count into their capacity. So I'm just showing you this to think about when we start comparing school districts, it's difficult because there's no one exactly like us. There's some are close, but they're not exactly like us. Ottawa Hills is looking at that. They got very little commercial and public utilities. We're really down there low on commercial and public utilities. And like I said, I'll talk a little about the commercial at the end. There's some things happening, some discussions with the city where that's recognized. So just want to kind of give you that heads up, kind of the big picture to look at when you look at tax efforts. And I understand the frustration in the community because we're a residential community, and that weight is on the individual taxpayer, not on a business like it would be in some of these other districts. Rossford, for example, 50% of their valuation is commercial. Okay, so just a little bit of a teaser. Look at where we are year to date. We're at 113 true cash days, about right where we expect to be this time of year. The legislators think we have a lot of cash, and in pure numbers maybe, but right now we're at 113 days. If we had no revenue, we could operate for 113 days before we ran out of money. Right now, the biggest driver on year over year is, if you look at all other, we're up almost 63% year over year. That's driven by investments. We're getting 4 or 5% on our investments, which is really nice. We make more in a month now than we did in a full year 2 years ago. And we're 6% on revenue year over year. And our expenses are right on. We're expected to be about 4.2%. And of course, the driven by salaries, we talk about that, just our year-over-year growth salaries. You'll see a little bit higher on the capital outlay, and that's still within budget, just we're spent a little bit more this year. And that is the general fund paid for a portion of the turf replacement as we're waiting for some donations and stuff to come in. There's our cash position, the trend that we see year after year. We'll hit our low point in the next 2 months. And just waiting for the first tax payments to come in. We do get in the end of January our quarterly income tax payment too. That helps that a little bit. Just a couple observations. Nothing. Oops.
Sounded like we lost power.
Second month in a row. Thank you for your presentation.
Not done yet.
Nothing personal, Randy.
Just give me 1 second to reboot here.
Hostler is, I think, messing with me. I've been a little mean to him lately.
There's other ways I could get at you instead of this venue with so many witnesses. So.
Whatever this is, I'd rather it not happen in a board meeting too. If I can.
You made fun of my favorite Christmas song, so.
I didn't. It's just a terrible one. So.
Doesn't everyone want a hippopotamus for Christmas?
Oh, Randy.
Oh, is that your favorite?
All right, so we're about 42% through the year. Again, we were talking about that earnings are strong. In a minute, House Bill 187 is a bit of a concern, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Though the legislators went on holiday break without acting on it. We thought for sure they would act on it by this past week, and they didn't. But I want to go through what the impact is on us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the curriculum expense. I say it's a concern. I just want you're going to vote on new K through 6 ELA curriculum, Wit and Wisdom, we were not expecting to do this year. And the T&L department's trying to, within their current budget, move things around, but it's still going to be a lot more than that we had budgeted for this year. But it covers this year and next year, but it'll be a this year expense. So I just want you to be aware of that. So when you get to the Wit and Wisdom portion on that approval, that's what that is. That's that ELA. It's state mandated for the science of reading, and I've just told you everything I know about it. So if you need any more, see Mr. Schwartz-Miller. But it's something we need to do. We're excited about the curriculum, but it's just the timing of it was like we had to do it now rather than a year from now. So just want to give that heads up. And you'll see in the resolution our estimated cost of $350,000. Not all that is new expense, because like I said, we've already got money budgeted in T&L for curriculum, so we'll use that money, and then there'll be some additional. We don't know exactly yet how much it's going to be. We're still working through all that. We just want to be transparent with the board on that cost. House Bill 187, as you recall, the House passed a bill that said, hey, we're going to reduce the impact of these significant reappraisals by averaging the sales over the last 3 years, kind of level out that impact. They passed it, went to the Senate. The Senate said, nah, we don't like that. So the Senate said, we need to do something, and probably our most vulnerable people are seniors. They're fixed income, these significant increases on their taxes due to reappraisal. Let's do something about it. So the Senate put together a package where they're changing the criteria for the homestead exemptions. And it was good for the next 3 years. And the interesting thing in this legislation is that the homestead exemptions impact a lot of areas. We already have homestead exemptions, but the state makes us all whole, right? If there's a X amount in exemptions, the state writes us a check for that amount. Well, in this case, the new exemptions, the state's only going to fund us 50% of that. The other other taxing authorities that be impacted get funded 100%. So only schools would be impacted by this bill. At a time when the state has $3.7 billion in the rainy day fund, and I'll go on and on and on. Which you get the picture, right? And I guess, as I don't think any of us not support giving seniors some relief on these increases, but it's this impact. So let me show you what it means to. So it does two things. The bill raises the income level to qualify up to $75,000 of household income from, I think it's $30,000 right now. And it's graduated. And then the other thing it does, it increased the exemption from $26,000 to $30,000. So here's just an example. So if I take a existing homestead qualifying homeowner making $35,000 a year, they have a $250,000 home, they're of age that they qualify. Prior to House Bill 187, their total tax bill, or the revenue that we receive is a little over $4,000. So part of that, their tax bill is $37,000, and the state is making up to $400,000. With this change, they would qualify for a bigger exemption. They would see a little bit of a relief. So instead of $3,711, they're down to $3,648. And that difference is split between the state and the school district. We would lose $32 essentially on that homeowner, okay? Modest if you look at any individual. If you take a homeowner that doesn't currently qualify, in this case their household income $62,000, same market value home, going through those same assumptions, the district would lose $124 on that. Okay, so these are relatively small numbers, right? But so what's it look in the aggregate? So again, we're changing the current eligibility so currently you have to make less than $34,600 a household. And there's some other enhanced programs increasing that to $75,000. And generally speaking, you're talking about citizens who are within the 65 to 75 year range. Anyone over 75 probably is already grandfathered in. I'm assuming that we have a relatively low amount in this district of homestead exemptions. It's like 1.5%. And districts, I've seen similar districts like 4.5%. So either it's a number of seniors, which I don't think is any different, it's just the income level of seniors that probably did not qualify in a lot of cases. So I'm looking at this as an aggregate. I'm assuming we're going to see a 28% increase. Where that assumption comes from, that's talking to experts out there. There's a way for me to generate that number in detail, but you can go through this. But in the end, it'd be lost to the district about $118,000, assuming that so. If the Senate acts, do I think we're going to lose $118,000? That exact number? No. That's an order of magnitude. Okay, because we could have more or less on the number of people who qualify without going into the census data and studying that. I just kind of pulled not a random number, but just an educated guess. So that's what the impact is of this. And obviously, we're not complaining about giving seniors some support on that. It's just the fact the state not making public school districts whole on that where they have the reserves. That's really the issue in my mind.
Randy, is there, I can't even find the words, it's so shocking to me. Is there a logical reason why they would take that money away from us?
Because they can? Is that snarky enough? Look, I mean, let me be more serious about the answer. There is a perception in the legislature that districts are sitting on tons of cash, right? And so they can afford to do this. And the fact is there are districts sitting on relatively large amounts of cash. But we know, just like in our case, that $24 million in general fund goes away pretty quickly. I know districts a third of our size that have that much cash. They have a year's worth of cash, but they've managed their money up to this point. ESSER helped. And then as soon as ESSER funds are out, that money will start going away fairly quickly. So it delays going back to the voters, right? And so I think that's the logic, is that districts have money, you can afford to pay for it. That's kind of how I read the situation, talking to folks in Columbus. But I think there's acknowledgement that every district is different, but you're going to make a decision on aggregate, right? And you know, can we afford that? It just means that when we talk about a November levy, it may change what the ask is a little bit. And it puts it right back on the homeowner again, right? So we'll pay for it one way or another as a community.
So they'll go ahead and give a break to the seniors, but then in order for us to be able to afford the break to the seniors, we have to go back and tax at a higher rate to make up the difference, so the seniors are now paying for it.
Basically.
Am I following this? I mean, this seems so ridiculously circular to me, that they could be that blind, deaf, and dumb and not realize what's going on with funding of public schools.
Well, I think you're Sue, I think you hit the nail on the head. Okay, I think you read the situation right, you know, and probably rightly so. There's an expectation that that our voters should speak on where our money comes from, and this puts it right back in our voters' lap. I mean, that it gives local ownership for the funding, and particularly for a district like us where we're heavily locally funded, right? So you know, we could probably get into other philosophical reasons, but you hit the nail on the head. Let's give the people who deserve a break. That's correct, but we don't want to make up for it here. You can make up for it, and it's just a challenge that we have in the type of district that we are.
Okay.
So, but anyway, at this point, it's kind of dead in the water until the legislature comes back in January. And it may be slow rolled because March primary, and for those, you know, House and Senate members who have primaries, their focus is going to get on reelected. That's the fact of an election year. So the last thing I want to show, and Tom kind of hit on this, it ties into some of our discussion here a little bit on potential bond issue. And I apologize for the graphics on this slide. I made a change at the last minute and forgot to change the animation. So the first block, ignore the one in the middle with the color on it right now. This shows our levies for tax year 22, payable 23. And you'll notice our total levies were 47.38 mils. And on a $250,000 home, which Tom pointed out that's the market value. The assessed value is $87,500. Their tax bill is a little over $5,300, almost $5,400. If that home had not changed in value, but our valuations went up like they did this year, our effective millage rate would have dropped to 44.08. All right, that's the effective valuation. Of course, we're talking about a home still being in this case, $325,000 in value. And you can see, I've color coded up there, all but the two levies that are at the 20 mil floor, the 4.3 inside, the 15.7, and the 5.5 PI, the drop in effective millage to generate the same. The one exception up here is in our bond issue. The one bond issue that is falling, that next year is the last tax year, actually went up a little bit. And that's because enough wasn't collected last year on that bond issue, so we had to decrease it a little bit to make the last two bond payments on that. But you'll notice the other one dropped from 1.52 mils to 1.35. So it just demonstrates how the effective millage is moving. Now, truth in advertising, chances are if your home was $325,000, it didn't stay that way after the reappraisal, right? That's the whole point of all this. So I just want to be, you know, transparent. You noticed, you know, a little bit, Sorry, the little calculation here. It's the same millage, 44.08. And the, my calculator went off in my spreadsheet, but the permanent improvement levy at the bottom is still 1.23. So you end up being, for the average homeowner, with the $325,000, they've got 20% increase. It's about $1,000 onto their tax bill. But what's interesting is, look at our fixed sum levy, the two fixed sum levies. The continuing one went from 11.58 down to 9.4 mils. Still going to collect the same money for the district, but actually cost the homeowners a little bit less. And our increasing fixed sum levy also dropped, even though we added $1.5 million in revenue. So this, again, it shows you the impact the reevaluation has on effective millage. And the issue really is not the reappraisal. The fact is, it's the reappraisal and being at the 20 mil floor. It's those two things, because we've had big updates, 10, 11, 12%, not as big as 24, but we haven't seen the big increases, as big increases, because we weren't at the 20 mil floor. That's where the revenue is. So, anyway, so that's it on that. Just quickly, a couple of things on your agenda. You got amended appropriations. We've got updated allocations on grants. The 24 tax budget hearing, I'm going to propose that, and when you ever set the organizational meeting date, that we do it 15 minutes before the organizational meeting. I have to advertise for the tax budget hearing. The board does not have to attend. I open it up for the public comment, and that's really what the intent of that hearing is. And then our financial audit's continuing. Just had a couple things today. And the last thing I want to talk about briefly is tax abatements. Going back to that thing, but we don't have very much commercial and industrial. It's recognized at the city level. Not that they really can do, we don't have a ton of land to use, but the question is, if we change our approach to tax abatements, could the city attract different and more businesses? Right now, in the city ordinance, that says that any tax abatement has to keep the school district whole. So there's no savings to the business from the school tax side, which is the biggest portion of the property taxes. So there is some discussion at the city to revise that ordinance so that they can negotiate a true abatement for all property taxes. So it's a kind of a heads up at this point. And Mr. Bennington, the city is going to be asking for a board member or two to participate in that conversation.
Okay.
With
Thank
them.
you
So it's just kind of a heads up at this point. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, because there's other things in our city ordinances that are more restrictive than our abatements, like the types of businesses that they allow to come in. But that conversation's happening, and the board should be at the table to have that conversation. That's all I have.
Okay.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So we're talking about curriculum and the mandate to purchase for science of reading. And I'm going to assume, and I hope I'm wrong, that this is going to be reimbursed by the state for the purchase of that mandated curriculum?
Negative.
And the cost of that would be?
Right now, our estimate to get started this year and for next year, $350,000.
So they decided to mandate across the state that everybody teaches science of reading and expects everybody to buy new curriculum and refuses to pay for it.
Yeah, and then, and Mr. Schwarzenegger can correct me on this, I believe it's the way we do curriculum these days. It used to be the old days, you buy a series of textbooks or whatever, and they last 5 or 6 years. You don't do that this year, all the electronic and digital versions, so we'll pay a licensing fee. Not next year, school year 25, but 26 and beyond is right now we're estimating $90,000. Is that right, Mr. Schwartzmiller? Yeah. So it's not just the $350,000. We have to build $90,000 into our budget because of the state mandate.
State mandate, another unfunded state mandate. Gotta love them.
I would add that we don't know. The state talks about giving districts some subsidies for purchase, but they haven't revealed that. We fill out an annual survey of what we use, and they're basing some of that decision on that survey, but they don't have any answers to what that would look like.
And there's some teacher stipends and stuff like that that's in there we haven't even got to yet. So there's a lot that we don't know, only that we need to do it.
You need to do it, go ahead and do it, but we're not going to pay you for it.
So the curriculum that we already have been using, Brent, is not, did I understand that we can't use that, even though we've been using basically the science of reading for years, that we're not going to be allowed to use that one because apparently it doesn't work?
Because our scores don't show that, right?
So, you're just knocking my socks off tonight, Randy. I just don't even know.
The timing, I think, is important to note too, because getting it ordered, delivered, and into the hands of educators at a time where they can begin to review it and implement, and Brent and his team are ready to lead, whereas if the board were to wait till the summer, and now we're having to wait when everyone else around the state is ordering and then implementing it while the school year is taking off, Brent, that would be very taxing for our staff, which we're very protective of their time. And
If we're
so the timing of this is important too, not to be lost in the
And
detail.
everybody orders the same curriculum at once. Good luck. We supply chain, yep.
Our elementary ELA steering committee felt very strongly that they'd rather have it play the waiting game. Once, problems with shipping and handling, scheduling is saving seats in the virtual type event sometime coming out, but it's obviously going to be in great demand. So being more proactive and taking a jump and preparing is
Thank you.
And we hear about that in TNL. That may be a nice subject for a future work session. A lot of work that goes on behind that, part of the science of reading. We were recognized with the governor's visit some months back, and some follow-up on how it's practically impacting the district and the work our buildings need to do would be worthwhile for this board to hear.
Maybe even at the retreat.
Okay, and Mr. Drew, back on HB 187, I just want to acknowledge too my appreciation for your reaching out to the state House and Senate to advocate, let them see what these ideas have on our finances and impact our community members. So again, thank you for your continued advocacy on behalf of the financial health of the district. Okay, we are now at agenda item 7.4, which is to approve agenda items 7.2 to 7.3. So can I have a motion to accept the financial report?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Reffert, Ms. Larimer, roll call, please.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes?
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, motions carry. Next item, board committees and discussion. So going down the list, there was an operations committee meeting. It was good for me, Ms. Larimer. It's her favorite committee, and she wasn't able to make it with her schedule, so I actually got a chance to interact, because Sue gets so excited at these meetings. I rarely get to say anything or participate. So you've got the notes there. They're really good. I'll draw a couple of things out there. Food service continues to innovate and do things in a new way that is continuing to increase those numbers, particularly at the high school. Transportation, I know we've got some action on a couple retirements for some bus drivers this month, but we've also have some new bus drivers in the pipeline. So I think Ms. Parr would be upset if I said that we had a surplus of bus drivers. That is not the case. But certainly between the work that HR is doing and who this district is, we're certainly holding our own as far as bus drivers right now. And then technology, what I found interesting, so they're applying for a grant that is going to bring in these new type of security cameras, and I don't have the name of those security cameras right now, but they essentially read people's license plates. So if somebody with some sort of record, somebody with a license plate that's been flagged, appears on one of our campuses, one of our properties, that's going to get highlighted depending on the infraction, possibly to the Perrysburg City Police, or if there's something say custody related, it'd be flagged to our own SRO. So, hearing about that and taking some steps where this could be cost free to the district to continue this protecting our students in this environment, was certainly interesting. And in fact, I think 2-3 days after that, there was an article in the Blade about someone in Toledo had been flagged under these cameras, and the police were on him, and he was arrested, within hours of that flag. So I think those were probably the high points out of operations. Next, Finance Committee, which I did not make, so Ms. Eubank, thank you for carrying my freight on that. Anything else to add from Mr. Drew's presentation?
No.
Okay.
No, Randy covered everything tonight.
Very good. Thank you. Curriculum Committee, Mr. Pullman, care to give your last T&L report?
Sure. Well, if you didn't get a chance to click on the links and the notes for curriculum, some very interesting adjustments, changes in some theater courses, some fine arts courses, and then in the STEM courses. And one of the interesting things about the STEM course, there's one class that they're proposing, makerpreneurship. It's kind of a neat concept. You get a chance to read through there and see the requirements and see what the class would be all about. But really improving the STEM area in the high school with robotics 1 and 2, and the way they're going to present who's qualified to take those classes, computer science, and then we have intro to engineering design. So a little bit changes in who qualifies as far as the prerequisites and so forth. But I think if you click on the link too, you'll see the theater and fine arts courses have been changed.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe there are any other committee meetings for the month. Anything else in committees? Okay. That will then take us to our next board discussion. So we're going to come back to discussing the ballot initiative. Again, building off of the conversation that we had during last week's special meeting. The materials that Mr. Hostler has provided help support that conversation. We have a resolution to proceed as item 15.1. So as part of that resolution to proceed, kind of now's the next chance, the last chance to have a discussion, get any clarifications we may need prior to that potential vote. I'm probably going to start out. I want to go back to something Sue had started to address, because I think it was a good comment. That idea of why the amount, and you alluded to levy fatigue, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah.
I think it's important that the community do understand what's going on in our levy environment, which I wrote it down, and now, excuse me, while I'm a little lost here. And slide, I think slide 30, or no, I'm sorry, not slide 30. I'm referring to where we talk about the upcoming levies that we have in 2024 and 2025. And, Sue, when I think about that, so, parsing this out, right, the trying to address what is the most immediate need, understanding that whatever future facility needs are out there, probably are up for a future board to decide too, right? I don't know that, given the levy timeline, in my opinion, there will be any other of these important needs that are out there, a chance to address them. So again, it comes back to what are we going to address in 2024, while we've still got access to an OFCC application, why we kind of appreciate the costs, as we talked about in the last meeting, how the costs continue to go up if we don't take action, building on the momentum of the facility committee and that investment that we did. So, again, trying to address what you were starting to talk about, because I feel that too. I've worked on levy campaigns for 13, 14 years now. So, levy fatigue is a real thing. But I don't know that, for me, that freezes me from saying, let's not do anything.
Right, no, I'm not saying not
Oh,
to
and I
do
know, I know,
anything.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes back to Lori's comment that the cost of doing nothing is very expensive. And I like how Mr. Hustler really did a deep dive into the, as you call it, postmortem, and seeing where the pressure points were, and going right down to the front lines and saying, where is it really exploding here? What can we do? What can we get? And figuring that all out. And it is the elementaries that need the attention now, and it would be the best use of that OFCC money. Okay, so I know we bounced back to his report, but when I was going through this earlier, I said, wait a minute, this, 15, there it is, the resolution to proceed. Is the resolution to proceed the same as the one that we did the last time, as the resolution of necessity, which is the one that's in there? I thought it would be something different. Isn't this the resolution for necessity? Now, did I take the time to actually sit down and print them out and compare them side by side? But I looked at that and I said, wait a minute, isn't this just the one that we just did?
It looks like.
Oh, did
You know what? Sue, it looks like the wrong thing got pasted in the public content, but the document
It's there below.
attached is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That's on me, but the document attached to it is the actual resolution to proceed.
Okay.
The one you're showing right now is which one?
That's the attachment that's showing.
Go up, though. I thought
That's the first one there.
it had last week's date on it or something, though.
Yeah.
That's what he did up there,
Really?
that one.
There you go. Resolution of necessity.
Wouldn't the date be different? Oh, a special session, okay.
Yep.
What I can do is copy and paste this,
I'll
drop
do-
it into the.
You just keep that open. I'll copy and paste that in there right now as you talk.
Okay.
Yeah, I always just go right to the attachments. So, nice catch, Sue.
I didn't catch that either.
There is the .85
It's just what it confused
mills.
me.
So that was, you were on that slide, Tom, slide 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about too was kind of clarifying the timing of this millage with these upcoming, or at least with the debt retirement, which is what I find an interesting opportunity here with this ballot initiative. And we'll come back to what ballot initiative means here in a second too, but we are looking at in 20, so we move forward with a March ballot initiative. Let me go back to my notes here. Here we go. In 2025, if that was to pass, that's 3.5 mils. That in 2025, 3.5 mils would start to be collected. Calendar year 3.5. Calendar year 2025, 3.5 mils gets collected. And then essentially starting in 2026, 1.62 mils comes off because of the HPI bond retirement. So there's 1 year of this, of some additional millage, but then falls off for a net of 1.98. Am I looking, that's so I'm looking at that correctly, and that, again, 1.98 for a $68 million upgrade to our elementary schools, not even counting potential OFCC money for a future board to decide what to do with, is also, again, an opportunity for me here when I think about how you use finances and kind of redeploy capital, let's say. That is, again, an interesting opportunity. And then probably the third thing I wanted to point out, and then I'm probably, made my point, so keep referring to this as a ballot initiative. If we go to slide 30, this is one that I probably still struggle with explaining, and if you can't explain it, it means you probably don't understand it. So this ballot initiative really includes two pieces: a bond issue that I understand, and then a local share of a permanent improvement levy. So that's the 265 is the actual bond issue, 0.85 permanent improvement levy, permanent, so it's in the word permanent, so it's in perpetuity, for the total combined millage of 3.5. Again, Tom, can you explain the local share of the permanent improvement levy, why that's necessary, and why there are two pieces to this one ballot initiative?
Sure. So on slide 28, in the Ohio Revised Code, it's section 133.06E. And you will see here some familiar terms, but it talks about, it permits a district to become a special needs district when the district population isn't being adequately served by existing permanent improvements of the district. So basically, the board did a resolution, and it said that we are, a special needs resolution, which was last week, and then that led to gathering and collecting information and getting this approval. So, so this is something that is available to school districts in Ohio, and that creates the bond issue. And this is where it gets a little technical, and we might have a little tag team between Randy and I, but basically the state allows the district to borrow up to a certain dollar amount, unless the district, by a certain date, which was November 20th, asks to go above that dollar amount. And that is something that the board would have to consider on November 20th of this past year. If the board by November 20th said, with the special needs, we're going to go ahead and move forward, ask for this permission, and then it would be granted, then it would be one issue, and it would fall exclusively under 133.06E.
A bond issue.
A bond issue.
Would have been a bond issue.
Right. Okay. So again, that was 13 days since the election, that deadline. And that was because the presidential election, the presidential primaries in March, those timelines are all condensed. And frankly, 13 days after the election, I don't think the board, and I don't want to put words in the board's mouth, but I don't think the board was in a position to say, let's go right back out, or let's begin to have this. There was still a lot of processing that was taking place.
You can put those words in my mouth. My ears were still ringing.
Okay. So what that means is, in the other section of the Ohio Revised Code, it is 133.06I, which is the same section, says that a school district can, make up that difference between what the state says you can borrow, and it can use what is said here is locally funded initiatives. So you see in brackets in the first bullet about halfway through, and it says OFCC portion. So what this means is the amount that is with the bond is the things that the OFCC is approving. Anything above or over that, you have to fund through the locally funded initiatives. So we had several conversations earlier, but the OFCC has some rules and things that they look at and put in place. For example, their projected growth for Perrysburg schools is approximately 32 students a year. So they're only going to fund enough additional classrooms to accommodate 32 students a year. We added in October 20 new students. So we understand that if we followed that very strict, and we can talk about why the OFCC does what they do, but we understand that if we, to put something on the ballot knowing that it falls well below the estimates, no one on the board, and again, putting words in the mouths of board members, I don't think that's where the board wants to go to do that. So this law is set up to allow boards to do just what this board is doing, which is utilizing that I section, which says that we are able to use a combination of bond mills and permanent improvement mills to meet that requirement in I, which gives us that 3.5 mills to do the project. So in the resolution, there's about 65 million that's identified. The additional are those additional classrooms that we know we need to do it right. And that's what leads us to slide 30, which is 2.65 mills, which is the bond issue. That's the amount the state has approved as part of the master plan. But that 0.85 is the additional classroom space that we know we need. Why does OFCC have a special information that this board doesn't have in terms of enrollment? It doesn't. They rely heavily on a couple of factors, which one of them is birth rates in Wood County. So one of the things that they look at is, are birth rates in Wood County increasing or decreasing? Well, we know that people move to Perrysburg with children after they've grown, and we had a speaker that talked about moving into Perrysburg. That's how our growth happens. It's not because of an increase of live births in Wood County or the area. So their formula is really not equipped to identify how, but when we hired other groups to do those enrollment projects, they do look at the amount of available land, they look at the amount of housing starts, they look at the turnover, of homes in different areas. So they look at different factors that really represent the kind of growth that Perrysburg experiences. So that's what led to this difference in terms of how the structure of this ballot issue is arranged.
The split hair is just a little bit.
Yeah.
The COPS is not considered debt. Okay? The key is we can only borrow, whether it's LFI or not, a certain percentage. That's the 68 million. That's the maximum we can borrow without a special needs exemption from the state. Okay? We could do the whole project as a COPS if we wanted to, right? Because it's not considered debt. All we're doing, we will borrow against that revenue stream. So like a bond issue is different. So essentially is when we go out with the COPS, essentially those who want to lend us the money know that we've dedicated this revenue stream to pay that loan back. But it's not considered debt because each year the board's going to appropriate the money to pay that. In theory, if the board says, hey, we don't want to pay it, then the lender can come in and repossess, which has never happened in the state of Ohio. Okay? So remember, so it's at our borrowing limit. The other thing is, and Tom's point is right, the OFCC's calculation of our growth is less, but in the end, when our number comes up, we are going to be funded based on our actual growth, not our estimate, not OFCC's estimate. So if we build square footage that's greater than the OFCC estimate, and we're correct, we'll get funded for that square footage.
Nice.
Okay, so that's a key thing to point. If our enrollment, if their number was too high, and let's say, heaven forbid, our enrollment dropped, they'd fund us less. And districts have run into that where the OFCC's...
Moving ahead now when the OFCC looks at the 30%.
Well, the 30% is fixed. It's just how big the project is. Is it 60 million or is it 70 million or 140 million? That's the number that will change. The 30% is fixed, it's just whatever the total is going to change.
So when does that growth get set? When does that funding occur?
At the time our number comes up. So 5 years from now, whenever that number comes up, that's when the calculation is made. The calculation will go, hey, you thought you'd have 31, whatever the number of students is, that's multiply it times the number of feet you need per student. This is how much you should have cost. And so for us, we know we need the space. We know that we're right on the enrollment. So it's just that right now, the OFCC, that's why we didn't argue with the OFCC once we got to this point, is because in the end, it's going to be the calculation at the time your number comes up.
So now when that growth will be apparent.
Right. And like I said, there's been districts who built buildings based on that, and enrollment went down, and the OFCC said, we're not going to fund as much as we said because your enrollment is less than we expected.
Right. So I think, so repeat back the first part. So we could build buildings just off of the indebtedness that we're allowed under a bond issue. But that building's going to be that program is going to be too small. And we're going to become subject to all the criticisms that even this board has heard about, say, the high school and even HPI, that you built it too small. So to build the building that the facility, to do the program, the elementary programs that the facility committee has recommended, that our growth initiatives say, we need to do more than what our total calculated indebtedness allows. So we're going to do that through the permanent improvement levy portion.
And may I add, why do a bond issue if you can do a COPS, right?
Did have that question rolling around.
Yeah, and the reason is simply, in general, that a bond issue is going to be a little bit less costly than a COPS. Okay, it's
Then a what?
a little less costly. So the bond issue, let's say the bond issue comes in at 4%, the COPS might cost us 4.25% interest.
Comps. Okay.
COPS.
It's a permanent improvement levy, COPS, you're using that interchangeably.
Well, COPS is the program. I'm sorry, it's a lease. It's a certificate of participation. So and I've checked with we have some recent COPS across the state. I've talked with some treasurers and talked to the county auditor about some bond issues. Right now, because of the interest structure, they're actually pretty close. The key will be our credit rating. That's going to drive the interest rate, and our credit rating at this point is very good. And the state of Ohio's credit rating just got increased, and we can ride that. There's a guarantee program we can ride with the state that will lower our interest rate too. So the difference between the two from an interest rate standpoint, there will be a little bit, but at this point, I don't expect it to be very big. Now that could change, obviously, based on Fed rates, and they're talking about Fed rates dropping here this next year, so it could end up being to our benefit and so anyway, I'm getting way ahead of us, but that's just something to consider.
Yeah, and each year, Randy, if I'm not mistaken, the districts will elect for a variety of reasons to use this part of the Ohio Revised Code versus, which is COPS versus other ones. So this is not a one-off, just one school district in Ohio doing it, but it is something that's...
Yeah, districts have funded buildings with COPS. It's very popular to fund athletic facilities with these kinds of things. And essentially, it's not really technically a COPS, but our boiler and chiller project that we did is very similar to structure to that.
And then again, so bond issue and permanent improvement, otherwise known as a COPS, all becomes, but that's all one vote. In March, you show up to the voting booth and you're just going to see one ballot initiative. It's not.
Yeah, I think
this is dependent on the bond passing and a PI levy passing.
I don't know, Tom, if you want to pull it up, you can see the ballot language.
Mm-hmm.
Just scroll down.
Yep, scroll up. Might be in the first section, if I remember.
That's still a resolution of necessity. You need the resolution to proceed. So open up either. There you go. So scroll on down. go on. And this, by the way, is the portion that got the Ottawa Hills folks in trouble not having it right this past.
Not the cops piece of it, just the calculation wasn't done correctly.
Yeah, the cops had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You still have the, still a resolution of necessity.
That's what I thought. Looking at it. So.
Refresh, Tom, refresh, if you don't mind, refresh your,
And I wanted to say a couple of things on, I brought it up at the special board meeting, but while I can agree that there is a need to do something, I hesitate with doing what we're suggesting. I'm not sure if the amount is too high for the community. It's not really, it's not half of what we were asking before. And my concern would be that it would be, too high. I suppose you're always going to have people that, regardless of what you ask, it might be too high. So that was one concern.
So you're not questioning the calculation of the, say, the 68 million. You're wondering, does the community still
Is
have the
68 million
appetite
too
for
much?
that, for it to vote for that amount?
so
Vote for
Tom,
that.
if you
Yeah.
scroll back up, section, right there, that section
As I'm saying,
there,
it's not even half of 140, so that's what
that's the ballot language.
that's just a, concern that, are we still asking for too much, which would be one. And then the second piece that I'm hesitant on is, as I shared before, I can agree on building a new elementary first. What I hear the need, and I've heard for the last 4 years, and I suppose that's why we built the trailers at the high school. And then we still even talk about, the teachers with 15 cards at the high school. But that need, in my opinion, would proceed before additions to elementaries.
So,
And while I can appreciate what is being recommended on these additions to elementaries, as I shared last week at the special election, is that truly where we should go as opposed to building a second brand-new elementary? When you look at the cost to add on to existing buildings as opposed to building, again, a brand-new elementary.
I have a house that was built in 1956, and I still live in that home. And I made improvements along the way, and it's a beautiful place. So I still think with our schools, you have a good footprint to continue to improve along the way, and you have good bang for your buck. So I sort of disagree with you on that one, but 1956, that's what, about 68 years old, and it's a good
I
place
have
to
a
live. So
home that
think
was built in
improvements-
1961, and I absolutely love it, and I would never, I would love it over a new build. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sometimes at some point, and trust me, I spent a lot of money adding on to my house and, doing this, that, and the other. I still have a home that was built in 1961. Now, I love the location, but, was it worth what I did? I don't know. But I guess my point is, you're just still adding on to something, and I'm looking at the cost, right? You could take that money and build something brand new as opposed to adding on to something, because as we've already discussed, it's not just adding on classrooms. You add on to the gymnasium, you add on to the cafeteria, and then you have to, update a lot of things. So I'm just looking at it a cost perspective. At the end of the day, you're still adding on to something old as opposed to brand new building.
So are you suggesting that we add 2 new buildings on top of the 4 that we already have? So we have Frank, Toth, Fort Meigs, and Woodland, plus 2 new elementary schools?
Yeah,
So that
because
would be
it'd be less expensive. You have to look at that cost, add on to the 3 existing elementaries, and then the, I forget what they call it. Hold on, let me look up.
So you
You're
would
going to have
demo- you-
operation costs for an additional building, not just one. You're going to have lack of equity across the district in the old buildings. So you're going to have 2 new buildings with all the new bells
We
and
already have
whistles.
that, and I don't think, when I would say to people, like, why are we adding on to, the elementaries? And I say, well, they want them to all be 800. Why? They're like, you have buildings now that aren't, some are 500, some are 600, some are 400. Like, I don't think that's as an issue as, I wasn't hearing that. I think at the end of the day, what is going to get you more bang for your buck? What are you spending the money on? Does that come out to be, beneficial?
What would you predict the cost would be for operating one elementary school? I mean, it's expensive.
Well,
It's not just the building, it's
Oh, I
actually
get that,
operating.
I get that, but
Let alone
to add
finding
on
land.
to, a new elementary is 35 million, 800 students. So to add on to Fort Meigs, Toth, and Woodland is 25 million. Required essential infrastructure improvements is 26 million. You're at 50 million there. So if it's 35, you take those millions and, you might be still spending the same because you'd have operation costs, but at the end of the day, you have a brand-new building for 800
So
students.
are you suggesting demolishing other elementary schools?
Oh, no.
So we've gone from
I'm just saying this is another option that I prefer. It's,
So one of the things that, so part of it is let's build 2 new schools with the money and not reinvest it in expanding in the 3 or doing the things that we need to do to keep those buildings for the next generation of Perrysburg students. So we'll have 2 new school buildings, and we'll have the aging buildings at some point, and we're saying that we're putting the money in the new buildings because we don't want to invest in those 2 older buildings because they're past their prime. Those are my words, not yours. So at what point do we schedule taking those buildings offline? Because we will have to reach a point where we're going to have to invest dollars for roofs and parking lots and boilers and all the things.
And we've
to
always
keep-
done that, right?
Right.
We've always done that. We get accolades. We kept up with our buildings a lot.
But part of the message is we're no longer able to keep up with those buildings because it's Toth, it's Frank, it's the junior high, it's a 21-year-old high, it's all of those things. So the idea is we'll open up 2 new buildings, and then the $1.7 million that we get annually for the PI, that will have to now cover all those kinds of things that you do to aging buildings. Toth, Frank, the Woodland is, 1979, the junior high, 1964. But we're going to keep those in use forever. Or not forever, but we're going to keep those used for the next 10, 20, 30. How long do we keep those buildings going?
That's a separate, I'm not saying don't do what needs to be done on those. I'm just saying with the money that I'm seeing here that's been proposed, it makes more sense to me and other people that have brought this to my attention to add another, it's just an option that I'm sharing, and I'm explaining what I see.
Right.
And others have shared with me would be more beneficial. That's it.
And I'm sharing with the
I love old
facilities.
buildings.
Yeah.
That's not even an issue. And we've taken great care of buildings.
So,
Honestly, at the end of the day, I would say sell this building. It's of use, but it's not, you maybe be more beneficial to sell this, get money for this, and, there's lots of options, that's what I'm just saying. This is one that I personally see.
I hear what you said last time and this time, and I thought about that some more. I'm still the same place I was last time at our special meeting. I still think there's a footprint of neighborhood locations of schools. I still think that when we look at the number of students currently in the elementary schools and they're overcrowded, we need to alleviate that problem. Not only for the educational standpoint, but for using a restroom, for goodness sakes. I just think it is a big deal with elementary kids. And I think when you say build 2 new elementary schools, where? Out to the west side of town? So then how many folks are you now busing that way? I would wonder, when a new elementary school is built, how many students do we have now going to Woodland from out of district, so to speak? Is that number out there somewhere?
I don't have that exact number.
Okay, then that's not
How many students are being
terms
bused
of
across
the-
town?
Yeah, right,
because
yeah.
They're not in their
Yeah.
neighborhood school?
right, yeah.
Yeah, we have, 595 students as of November. I don't have a breakdown in front of me of what percent are not from that area, but,
But by building a new elementary school, will relieve west of town with number of students who are coming across toward Woodland or to Toth. Is that not true? Wouldn't that be a true statement? I mean, that's what I'm
when you
thinking.
argue about Woodland, I mean, even when Woodland was built, what's it called? Oak Bend, Oakmont went to Woodland. Like, that's not a neighborhood. I mean, you got to get on Route 20 to get there, But that even was back in 1980 something. So I hear, and I love a neighborhood school, but like I said last time, honestly, if you're not a mile,
I guess that's what I'm
you are
considering.
getting on a bus, your parents are driving you. You're not really, a true walker unless you live directly, next to.
I would say a mile to me is neighborhood. I think after that, 2 miles we're busing. That's the law, right? Yeah, so I would say a mile is neighborhood. At least we've got walkers or commuters, and then the rest are bus. I get that
Right.
point. I'd still, Mr. President, I'm still where I was at last week as I thought some more, that the committees made suggestions on the footprint of our elementary schools, and still that time was very valuable with the information that they've had at their fingertips with over a year's worth of investigation and research. I still think there's a need for taking care of our elementary schools as a priority and submitting it to the community in a March ballot issue.
Yeah, when I look at this slide right here, I'm of the same thought. I mean, is even the 68 million too much for voters? I mean, that's why we put things on a ballot. To answer that question, I think Mr. Pullman last week was using the word fletching point, or flinching point. What is that flinching point? I suppose we'd find that out. And I am motivated by the fact that, as we talked about last time, this doesn't get any cheaper with the passage of time. And yes, there are a whole lot of other options that can be considered, and I don't want to discount feedback that has been received. I'm balancing that with honoring the process that the board, the community has gone through for the last 2 years to get to this point. And I want to take action and to look at other options. I mean, if this is not successful in March, then future boards will have to look at, open up the patient again and put a whole bunch of options back on the table. Meanwhile, I guess tick tock, the dollars continue to go up. So I am probably where I mean, having given this some thought and having some of my questions answered about the mechanics of the ballot, I'm where I was at last week as well.
I just had a question about the wording on permanent improvement levy. Is that, how permanent is permanent? It's so forevermore, so when that ballot initiative is paid for, that permanent improvement levy, though, will continue on?
Unless the board takes action to stop collection on it.
Okay.
And it's a statute, you don't have the flexibility just to just pick the number of years. So it's continuing, and 30 years from now, or it could be, depending on what, that 0.85 mils was based on what we expect to be able to get the cops at. So if it comes in less, or there's some other, it could stop at any point. The board could say, look, we've collected enough, we can pay this off. You could stop it, or they could say, the board at that time, 30 years from now, can say we want to keep it and use it for maintaining the buildings at that time.
Okay.
They have that option.
A little snarkier, 30 years from now, if it's 1.2 million, that might pay for a boiler 30 years from now.
Well, the effective millage rate at 30 years from now is going to be like negligible, right?
Yeah, 0.85, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is, Sue is correct. It's continuing, but again, the board will have the option to deal with it
Okay.
as they pay down the cops.
So that's the nature of the beast of the COP program.
Well, let's separate two things. I'm going to get a little technical. I just want to make sure our language is correct. COPS is the program which we're going to fund it. The permanent improvement levy is the guaranteed revenue stream that we're going to pay the COPS with.
Oh,
Okay? You could have already had, the board could have pulled inside millage to do that. There's other ways to do it, but the point is you designate a revenue stream that, hey, Mr. Banker, I've got this revenue stream, loan me the money,
Okay.
essentially.
And this one's still for 36 years, right?
The bond issue's 36 years, yes.
36 years.
Yeah, we could have gone longer, but because of separating out some of the stuff into the COPS, we could have extended the bond issue, but we decided to keep it at 36 years.
How did HBI come off so fast then? Because that hasn't even.
It's not the HBI, it's the high school.
Oh, I thought someone said HBI
I
tonight.
might have incorrectly said it.
Oh, okay.
Might have been me.
It's the high school.
Sorry.
HBI, we refunded half those bonds, and it will be shorter, but not that short.
Well, that's that's what I thought.
That would be nice, paying that off that quickly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Point out, though, the high school being paid off in end of 2025 is less than 40 years, right? So that happened, there were some refundings in there that made that happen when interest rates were favorable and stuff, so.
Okay, I'm going to close that discussion down. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we are now at item 9, the consent agenda. The consent agenda will cover items 10 through 14.
Mr. President, may I, we have a slight correction we need to make.
Okay.
Before you, item 11.2, correction to rest of mentor contract. If you look down at the second block, the number there, you'll see it, there is a duplication. It should be $1,110.99 instead of what's there, $1,068.26. So it'll be above the second table on page 8. That number is just a typo, got copied and pasted
Correcting the
incorrectly.
correction. So what is that number again?
$1,110.99, just like the number above it. in that
Gotcha,
table.
thank you.
So sorry, I apologize for that, but want to make sure it's correct.
So again, the resident educator, second-year mentors for the 2021-2022 school year, $1,110.99, correction from 106,826. Okay. So with that correction, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
Mr.
Second.
Pullman, Dr. Reffert. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, consent agenda passes. Next item on the agenda is 15.1, the resolution to proceed. The corrected language is now online on board docs, as well as being up on the screen. I have a motion on the resolution.
So moved?
Second.
Sorry, was that Mr. Pullman?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
No.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Resolution passes. That takes us to item 15.2, nominate the President Pro Tem for the organizational meeting in 2024. Clarification, this is not a vote, this is just We will accept nominations.
I nominate Eric Bennington.
Are there any further nominations? Anyone? Okay.
Stand, please.
I gladly accept that nomination. Thank you, Dr. Ruffert. Takes us to item 16. Board discussion, any new business?
Yes, if I may address the board, Mr. Bennington?
Yes,
By podium.
Mr. Pullman, please.
Did you want to say anything first?
I'll go after you. I didn't prepare anything, but you go right ahead.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I could see all your faces because I was getting kind of crooked over there on the right
Oh,
side.
I had to move my chair.
But I did want to address the board and the folks that are here and the ones who are not here but may view in later. Because after 44 years being involved in the school district, I have a chance to observe quite a bit. And I have quite a few thank yous I would like to make. But I retired in 2015, and my words are written down because I want to make sure that I stay focused on what I'm supposed to read and from the heart tell you what I think about this school district. I wanted to stay involved, so I ran for the school board. And Perrysburg schools, in my estimation, are outstanding, not just in their academics. It truly, to me, is heartening knowing that only academics, but in addition to that, providing programs and staffing to address our students' social and emotional needs. Programs like the Jacket Way in our schools encourages and reminds our students to be respectful, responsible, and ready, a great motto for all of us to follow. Support of the CQ community designed to increase the cultural intelligence and equitable practices of our district employees and students has made a difference in our schools. The district continues to be guided by the mission statement to ensure that all students will address their full potential. And to achieve this greatest potential, we defined a portrait of a jacket as a thoughtful problem solver, purposeful communicator, respectful collaborator, persistent innovator, lifelong learner, empathetic citizen, certainly all characteristics worth aiming for. Now, having raised 3 children who graduated from Perrysburg schools, and also have a granddaughter attending the junior high, I personally witnessed the priorities the school district has. The school district provides our students with academic excellence, first-class extracurricular activities, safe and secure learning environment, and mental health awareness and assistance. In addition, this district welcomes opportunities to engage and serve the community. Throughout my career as an educator, I've always kept the students in the forefront. As a matter of fact, my campaign 8 years ago was Kids First. And I've been able to do that simply because of my faith, my prayers, and supporting my wife supporting me and my family. Now, in the past 8 years serving the school board, there have been decisions made that were difficult and very challenging. But in the end, the final decision I made was influenced by what was best for the most priceless treasure in our community, our kids. This has guided every vote I've made as a board member. It has certainly been a privilege for me to work in the Perrysburg district and also to serve on the Board of Education. Working with outstanding teachers, administrators, custodians, secretaries, coaching staffs, the IT staff, students, parents, members of the community, it has been a real blessing. What makes this district an exceptional district is all the people I've mentioned and everyone in this room. Our school leaders continually demonstrate the ability to develop a learning environment influencing both fairness and inclusion, and this has been influenced by the Board of Education and our decisions based upon factual data. During the pandemic, we learned that as much as we tried to keep school lessons going at home, it was a struggle. The problem was that we lost the essence of human relationships and human connections. But getting kids in school by following the guidelines set by CDC allowed for that human connection. Mr. Hostler and Mrs. Price, principals and teachers, HR, custodial, you've been overworked during that time. But you came to work every day. You made a difference for the staff and the students. I've witnessed that. Now, in a time where you could be playing tennis, President Bennington, or going for a walk, Mrs. Larimer or Mrs. Eubank, or eating dinner at 6 o'clock, Mr. Hostler, or being home before dark, Randy, or just relaxing after work, Dr. Refford or Mrs. Price. Of all the things you could choose to do, you've decided to be either administrator or you ran for school board. Why? Sometimes you might ask that same question, why? Why did I decide that? After serving with you, I think I have an answer to that question. Perhaps you were influenced to be by a desire to make a district an even better place. Maybe there was a school issue that concerned you and you decided to get involved. And maybe it was your love for kids and service to others before self. Or perhaps it was a combination of all of the above. Serving as a school board member, superintendent, treasurer, or administration is a tough job. We have all here witnessed changes in the culture, ODE requirements, federal government requirements, funding for our schools, and we have faced distractions taking us away from doing necessary routine of school business. But through it all, this district stayed focused on doing what's best educationally for our community's children. It's certainly for me been a pleasure to serve with members such as Jarman Davis and Gretchen Downs and the board members present here today. It was enlightening to have served on various board committees, observing the leadership to chairs discussing the progress monthly in operations, technology, curriculum, personnel, finance, policy, communications, and people services. And each committee was led by a fiscally responsible administrator that plays a vital role in keeping our district functioning effectively. A school board, as I've known and learned and watched, serves together as a team. It takes cooperation, communication, preparation, research, knowledge, perseverance, and commitment. President Bennington, your leadership as a president and vice president has provided a sense of peace, welcoming, and direction. Dr. Refford, your knowledge and experience with special education and the law is very valuable to this district. Ms. Larimer, your understanding of Ohio Revised Codes, ODE, your research and wordsmithing, as we witnessed tonight, is such an asset to this board. And Kelly, your willingness to run as a school board member and run again for re-election is commendable. Superintendent Hostler, you've been an exceptional leader in this district. The things you deal with daily and how you deal with the issues are commendable. Treasurer, Mr. Drewer, your experience, knowledge, and financial information provided to the board and community as a treasurer is very transparent and specific. Earlier today in this meeting, we honored champions in athletics. But there's another set of champions before us that are sitting in the front table, in the seats, and behind me. In the words of educator Rita Pearson, you probably have heard this, every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they can possibly be. That sounds familiar. That's our mission statement. All students achieve the greatest potential. I want to thank every one of you here for being that heart of a champion for the Perrysburg School District. The district does have challenges ahead, but the challenges will be met with two new board members, Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Menke, and I ask you to say good luck to you, and I know the two of you will form a great team for the challenges ahead in year 24 and beyond. Just thank you all, good luck to you all, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Those were great words, and again, thank you for your service. That should be repeated at at a Capitol Conference for Board Membership 101 right there. That was great stuff.
There you go.
So, thank you.
I'll take it to those who need to know that.
You will be missed, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board discussion?
That's hard to follow.
That's why I wasn't going to call you out specifically. That's a tough act, but please.
Right. I honestly, I didn't prepare anything, but I just would like to say it's been a pleasure. As you all know, I'm from Perrysburg. I've seen a lot since moving here in 1978. It's either, I guess, good or bad that it's getting bigger. I'm more nostalgic of, what it was growing up in the 80s here. But certainly, going to school here. My daughter will be graduating in 2026. It's a great community. Everything, Ray touched upon, absolutely rings true. So, yeah, I guess that's all I'd have to say. But it's been a joy being on school board.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other board discussion, we don't have anyone else signed up for public participation this evening. So the last item on the agenda is the adjournment, and I think Mr. Pullman and Ms. Eubank should take those. But do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Ms.
Second.
Eubank? Mr. Pullman. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennington.
Yes, we are adjourned. Happy holidays.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Nicely done.